Look, in the current increasingly competitive business environment, maintaining an edge over rivals has become challenging. Let's take ChatGPT as an example. It's been a few months since it's launched, and already it has various competitors, including Google's Bard. So, where could we look for answers? Perhaps the answer lies in mastering competitive intelligence, because by mastering competitive intelligence, your organization will be better positioned to adapt to market changes, identify new opportunities, and stay ahead of the competition. But doing so is not without challenges. So, how do you orient your competitive intelligence capabilities to fuel predictable growth and scale? We'll get into that in a bit. Hello and welcome to the Predictable B2B Success podcast, brought to you by Spratwith.com. I'm Vinay Koshy, and our guest today is Dejan Gajsek. Dejan, you're originally from Slovenia. You've taught yourself to understand the game of marketing and sales through experimentation, really. And you've done a lot in that space, but you've since used that knowledge to bring 3 early stage startups as a one-person marketing department. That in itself is fantastic. But in 2019, you co-founded your current company, Grow and Scale, and your first client was Microsoft. Now that's quite an achievement for 2 people from Slovenia, but you've now since grown to 7 plus, if I'm not mistaken, and you help out international mid-market and enterprise B2B tech startups with tailored competitive and sales enablement programs. So the companies can start closing more accounts and stop losing deals to their competition. I'm curious, was there a particular incident or event that triggered this idea of establishing Grow and Scale to what it is today?
Yeah, first of all, I'm really grateful for the invitation. I'm super excited to talk with you today. Incidents, why I started or co-founded the company was mostly been working with early stage companies until that point. And I just saw all possible mistakes happen. And I'm a very curious guy. I always read case studies on the side, stories, growth lever, success, narratives, and so on. And I just figured out after 3 stints, I just thought, let me just try this on my own thing. My best friend and partner at the agency. And we were very lucky with our first project, and that was just a starting
Good. And I'll ask you this a little bit later, but I'd love to explore how you managed to land Microsoft as your first client. But given your journey to date, what would you say would be your personal area of strength?
I think the curiosity would be first. I would, even on my free time, I would just go and see what's going on, reverse engineering. Because I think it's the best way to learn something is by learning from other people's mistakes. And then the second best way to make your own mistakes and try not to. Our work is mostly digital and online. So it's quite easy to just find something and follow the breadcrumbs and find those levers or insights that make the company successful. And this is super interesting. And I'm happy that's part of my life.
Brilliant. And in that area of strength, what would you say is something that businesses don't know but should?
Right now, I think businesses are, especially in this tech environment, everything is catered towards revenue generating strategies and tactics. I feel like there could be some short sightedness at times. If you're going for short term results, say maybe yes, you're getting some now, but you might be shooting yourself later, so cater those results. One thing that I really like about is that we all saw during COVID, everybody's in Zoom right now. We're actually on calls now. If you saw the Zoom usage over COVID, it's just next to stratosphere because everybody was using Zoom, right? But think about if I'm an investor to Zoom, I just want to see hockey stick growth all the time. But now that you're going back to normal, in the quotes, we can expect the stratospheric growth. So if I'm in Zoom, I would need to think about strategically what are the best steps to do. And probably not look just for the revenue, but think about how we can transform in the long term.
Mhm. Brilliant. Just going back to that point that I made earlier on, this idea of landing Microsoft as your first client at growing scale. I'm curious, so one would think that Microsoft would have the ability to conduct its own competitive intelligence, sales enablement. How did you manage to land them as a client?
I want to say it's mostly luck, but when I told the story to other people, they said, well, actually, you just got an opportunity and executed it. But mainly it was just, I was really curious and outgoing person. My startup at the time was landed as one of the 7 startups with an accelerator that was in Seattle. And in Seattle, there was a lot of people from Amazon, Microsoft, and me being there, the light, just, oh my God, this is amazing. I can talk to the smartest people everywhere. So it was just very young. I took these coffee dates, meetings, and 20 times smarter than me, build a network. And years after, I started talking to a senior marketing manager at Microsoft. I did some recommendations. They liked the recommendations and then asked for this particular project. I didn't know who to refer, but it was something in our wheelhouse. So we said, just try things around. You should trust us. So that was our first project, which led to the second project. Make sure that we use that opportunity to grow our agency.
So when we talk about competitive intelligence, my understanding is it's not just sales enablement, it's a lot more. And most people would probably think of sales, but they're not the only ones who can benefit from competitive intelligence. In fact, teams from across the organization can make use of the competitive intel to increase productivity and performance and achieve strategic goals. At least that would be my understanding. What would How would you describe it to someone who's perhaps not familiar with it?
In super layman terms, competitive intelligence or advanced enablement just means you're gathering intel and data on competitors and you use it in your own products and own the best use case. And what we always pitch as a competitive enablement thing is, hey, you're just going to stop these deals on the sales process. If you're a mid-market scale up or enterprise, you are just in, in the arena of competitors. And even somebody said there are no blue oceans anymore. We all read that book, Ocean Strategy, and just, hey, now they don't exist anymore. If you're in this level, you are constantly competing against other rivals. So having an efficient competitive enablement means that you're prepared on sales calls and you can talk crisply, clearly about yourself, your position versus competitor, and even go on offensive. Case studies, strengths, continue to identify or defensive, which competitor is on the call, so you can intelligently reframe questions as who is on is in it as well. That's on the maybe shorter term, just sales performance and revenue. Everybody's interested in that, especially nowadays. But it's also some sort of a security guarantee. I think we all read stories or we know why CoolUp doesn't exist anymore, why Blockbuster doesn't exist anymore. And competitive intelligence combined with marketing intelligence basically is some sort of a safety precaution. So you can strategically orient your products so you will not do some massive mistakes. And competitor intelligence gives you some signal what competitors are doing, and you can use that inside information to either use some smart pivots or even go really hard on your own position. So, yeah, go ahead. Uh,
Curious. What you're saying doesn't sound like rocket science. It's nothing new or novel. So I'm curious, from your perspective, why is it that people or businesses don't invest in competitive intelligence?
that's a good question. Coming from my own experience, usually the teams are still quite new. And if you want to be really good at competitive intelligence, you need to make it as a full-time function. And
Right.
most startups and companies would add this comparative intelligence area of responsibility on somebody that is already doing 60 priorities. And then it might not generate great results. And they would maybe think, yeah, that's cute, it's fun, and it's interesting. But our thing is made to develop, to get product market fit, on revenue. So they would see issue else and they don't do this deep analysis of what's going on the sales side. So some of the companies, which is really sad to see, but they would rather place their sales force and see a lot of turnaround companies instead of doing some win loss analysis, figure out why. So I guess it's blaming the wrong person on the wrong element.
There are some who might be listening saying, that sounds great, but I've been told that we're better off trying to forge our own path and not look so much at our competitors. And that really we need to craft our own product roadmap, etc., and not keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. So if that is the case, it doesn't hurt. I understand it doesn't hurt to keep an eye on the competition, but could this whole idea of competitive intelligence be more of a distraction than me focusing on our own kind of roadmap? Or is it something that are you recommending that it be outsourced completely so that an independent third party could provide a different perspective? What would be your take on
Yeah, that's a really good one. First of all, it is a precaution. And you as a company, you need to find a way not to be better, but different. And knowing what your competitors are doing, it makes it way more easy to use. And then we also talked about strategic advantage. You can maintain the competitive edge. And if you look at the statistic itself, usually 1/3 of all open deals are competitive deals. So imagine if you just leave your sales force to find their own business without tools, without help, without support. It's really rough. Why would you do that? And especially if you're working with big companies where annual average annual AR per customer is about 50K or more. So if you have 100 leads, 100 leads, or competitive deals, with if you would just win all those competitive deals, you will have extra 1.6 million per year. So you just need to equip your sales team with the right information. You're not better than them, but you definitely need to teach them what to use at certain costs, how to speak about your strength, what's the one state, what are the weaknesses, how you can lay seeds of doubt in your prospect's mind about the competitor. And because you did all that homework, first of all, your sales team becomes way more confident. And sales confidence goes parallel with sales performance. It's one thing. And one is just a precaution. It's you being in front and being proactive instead of, oh, there's a new underdog startup. It's beautiful little crisp UI and UX, and funky fonts. They use emojis in their messaging. And with you as an incumbent, you keep seeing these new startups appearing in deals and you start losing them. So now you're on the active side. So what do? You have to do something because it's a threat. And maybe on every quarter, you're having the same discussion. Somebody from management will say, oh, it's not a big deal. But you are having the same conversation every other quarter. It's becoming big. So having a system is having an intelligence function. It's really smart things to have. And I think inventory elements, not just nice to have.
when you were talking about ensuring that the company understands how you're different, are you referring to things like the value proposition and messaging and ensuring that that everyone's on the same page?
Yeah, definitely. Your core positioning as a company. We are this company that does this, and this is who we are. When mentioning a couple of brand names like Diamond. We know what is that. It's a clothing retail business, but we know what they stand for exactly. You know what the quality is because they built that brand. If you say HubSpot versus Salesforce, you know exactly what feelings arise. Talk about the spreads as well. So you need to know exactly what you are standing for, and that's your fundamental thing for crafting strategy.
Certainly. Curious, so would you say that a function like this, while it certainly doesn't necessarily make sense for it to rely on the sales or marketing per se, should there perhaps be something a bit broader, such as branding, and where a role like this should come under?
Usually, we as a growing scale yard agency,
Oh,
we usually work as senior product marketing manager or VP of
okay.
product because they are influencing the product. They are already doing massive research, and this is just an extension of
Mhm.
intelligence coming on. But the different thing is that you're now tied with sales and closely. You're seeking feedback from all sorts of sources, primarily from the own CRM departments, plus researching online,
Mhm.
like product pages, social like that. Yeah, so we in 90% of cases function inside product. So,
That's interesting because I would have thought that the value proposition and messaging, etc., should also be tied in with the overall brand that the company is trying to portray. How, if at all, do you address that aspect of it?
yeah, you are the one hub that collects all the data, and then you work are with enablement like so-called battle cards, the one format that helps us to win deals right there on the spot. But you can also create battle cards for market, for customer success, or product or sales. The CI function is extremely collaborative one, and you're always working with different departments, and so that's why the communications, or the format of your collaterals is super clean and accessible. It's just I think it's a matter of research function as of why this lies within product, but product is just delegating across entire enterprise or across the organization.
Could you talk us through how you would go about establishing a competitive intelligence program where none might have existed as yet?
Well, so definitely talk to sales leaders, sales reps. It's possible have in-person meetings or have 30 minutes, plan questions, asking what's working, what are the objections, collect and feedback from them. Then also going to your CRM, do some win-loss analysis of deals, figure out why deals were lost. Also ask sales when there's where you're not confident. What is missing in your job to perform your work better? And now that you have some information already, you'll be able to identify who your top one or two competitors are. So now you go into hunting mode. You just check the product pages, you check their products, you check their pricing, their video sites, you check their case, you do some little social list. You establish this flow of data that feeds your research library. And then you perform this position comparison. What's your product position versus competitor? And then find the dirt of competitors and create assets that help sales teams win those deals. So biggest example of how you can help is a battle card, which is just one piece of one format where you add positioning statement, pricing, information of your product versus competitor, your strengths versus your weaknesses, how you're going to frame or handle objections, equip those battle cards with case studies, so you double down arguments, always date your battle cards, so always fresh intel, and you can keep on optimizing. Whenever you have fresh intel, always ask for feedback and check regularly how those are performing on source codes.
Okay. I'm curious. For lower price products, that certainly makes sense. But for high ticket items, often there's a few people involved in the buy decision. Now, stating your brand's position clearly is important, but I would also think it's important to speak to the position or the role that one of the buying decision makers have is also important. Is there an element of that you include in the building out the foundations of competitive intelligence?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You will know exactly. Usually, you have some sort of ICP, and you have one type of
Mhm.
buyer on the call. So you always cater your battle cards towards that them that person, that's ideal person. And as soon as you just get those calls in, you can
Mhm.
always iterate, or at least need be you create new battle cards. So let's say this is a battle card. You have CTO, a technical engineer on board. You'll probably talk more about your strength as how many informations your product has, how secure it is, how stable it is, so on. It is all depends on the industry. And so that's all there. Just you make sure to identify what are the biggest priorities, and this is you don't do card. This is where you each always where that lever.
Just going back to what you were saying, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're really encouraging people to build out, and perhaps this is what you do as well, that you're really building out not just these battle cards, but a lot of collateral that your sales teams and product managers could use to help with closing a deal. Oh, would that be correct?
Yeah, battle cards is just one one page of the whole book that is, let's say, we call it competitive playbook. And battle cards are just one thing that the sales teams are using internally, or and other departments as well if they want to. But this is just one piece of intel that is used. What is in this compete playbook is product teardowns. There are notes from the conferences. So
Mhm.
you're seeing signals where competitors are going to. It could be iterating your core positioning if that is changing. Right now, AI is everywhere. That needs to be included. There's a way we always send in-house newsletter, a fresh intel every week, saying, hey, competitor A and B are doing this and this, or somebody has used a product, or some company has been acquired. This all lies in this playbook, and you need to stay ahead so you're never caught blindsided sales
Mm.
or blindsided on the product roadmap.
And I take it with that, you're also looking at trying to help an organization be a little more cohesive in their sales approach, whether it be not just the information that people should have handy, but the kind of support that they can lend it to each other to either close a deal or to help with customer retention, as well as the handovers from, say, sales to customer success or account managers, etc. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, as I said, when you do introduce the competitive intelligence, you are supporting four departments: customer success,
Right.
marketing, product, and sales. Sales is just usually the most interesting for our clients because they're always looking for, oh, we just need better
Mm.
revenue performance, which makes sense. But the more you know about competitors, we can go really philosophical and going to science to know your enemy and know yourself, and you're never going to fear any battles. But that's actually true in business work. You can just double down on your strengths and weaknesses, or maybe
Mm.
your competitors are doing, they're releasing a lot of other stuff, and you as a competitive intelligence professional, you can take a look and just think about, is this something that we need to react to or not? Is this important? Is this a threat? Or maybe they're just playing around shipping left and right. And if they're making a mistake, the smartest thing is just leave back and let them make mistakes.
Certainly.
And yeah, and then we research them. This can be used by marketing and their marketing materials. Just figure out how to position yourself better by knowing what your rivals.
And I'm curious, obviously, what you're saying makes a lot of sense on the face of it. But even from a sales point of view, obviously there needs to be some sort of link to the numbers or an improvement in the numbers if this is what they're seeking out. Are you able to draw those correlations? What does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything needs to be measured, right? In that space anyway, right? Usually the easiest place to do this, if a company let us do changes, then we would update the CRM. And you can update the CRM by adding some mandatory fields, such as, is there a competitor mentioned on the open deals? Was CI asset used in that open deal? And is there a competitor incumbent or is it a new one? And that's where you can calculate whether CI function is working or not. Make sure that those fields are mandatory, right? They can't close the deal if they don't add those notes. And then by the end of the quarter, let's just say after 3 months, you'll see which deals were won and also have checked off that CI assets were used. So now you can have an actual number of your CI function. You have an actual return on investment of this endeavor.
Is there something to be said about being able to speed up the use of competitive intelligence across the organization? Again, what does that look like? Because I would believe that if it works and it's working well, then there should be an increased momentum right across the organization in the use and proliferation of this information. I don't know if you could speak to that or if it's a completely separate issue altogether.
No, this is wonderful. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time, just because it's such a collaborative function. You are working with 4 different departments. And even if you want to start with competitive intelligence, you usually need a buy-in from supervisor or VP of marketing or somebody up above, even CEO, so they can start this thing. And now you are fueling and supporting 3 or 4 different departments, which means that your communications be very clear and concise. You need to be very mindful of what kind of formats you're using, where you are housing all this information. Make sure it's really accessible. And then at the end of the day, you're basically a cheerleader or a motivator as well. So you have to not persuade, but get sales reps on your side, or you have to go on their side. But I think, this is going to help. This is going to make your job way easier. So it could be a little bit challenging at the start, especially with seasoned sales reps. So we always did this way. I don't need any help, or I don't need this. Why would I need to add another thing? I'm not hitting my KPIs. Come on, man. But you just have to maybe pick 2 or 3 sales reps at the start. Make sure you get really good results there. They are also motivated and they are really happy with those assets and materials. You share that inside the organization, either through newsletter or in some team communications chats. We want these deals, we use this and this. And now you can grow that little tiny mushroom to something way bigger because you have this tiny results at the start. In the end, you get the revenue, the teams are happy, and now you can scale the CI programs easier and faster.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're suggesting that this process is more mirrors that of change management and communication to an extent. And it's also about finding those quick wins via pilot tests. in order to create an internal write book of the results achieved and make a case for why others in the organization should use it. Would that be correct?
Yep. Yes, exactly. That's why it's really important to start small. You don't want to overwhelm your sales teams. You also don't want to just copy paste all the million data points that you collected. Just here, read this next American novel. No, because that's a hard no. It's really important just to start small, pick one competitor maybe. You know exactly who that is. Even people listening, they know who I'm talking about. It's that one company that is dealing your deals, and start building there. Get 3 sales reps on your side, help them out, listen to them, interview them, listen to their sales calls, listen to their notes, make one little imperfect battle card and ask them, maybe even on a weekly basis, how is this performing? Are you getting better deals? Do you know what to talk? Can they help you with talk tracks? Give you some recommendations? What else do you need to handle this material or use this material better? So this is why it's important, really useful function, because once you get this right, it's really easy to do this for the second competitor or to get another sales reps on your side. And if you do this consistently and efficiently, the revenue is going to show up.
Certainly. It makes a lot of sense. When we've talked about sales enablement, obviously, and using collateral to that end, there is a lot of conversation around the fact that things like AI and chat GPT, etc., have made producing content a lot easier and more of a commodity. However, there is the danger of producing content for the sake of producing content, which probably doesn't really help with the overall sales enablement process. It's only one thing to look at competitors and produce content that answers comparison questions, which would be true of those who are perhaps further along in their research process at getting closer to a buy decision. But what about the upper end of the funnel? How would we, in light of competitive intelligence, look at building the top of the funnel and at the same time ensuring that it speeds up the overall sales pipeline velocity?
Yeah, in that case, I would look at the sales enablement materials. And even I started a career as a content person. And right now, yes, it's really rough for content marketers out there. But still, in the end, right now, AI is not 100% accurate. You as a business can't afford to just use information that's not factual. Secondly, you as an organization, you have your own brand. You know your customers the most. And that's why all that research, all that feedback, all those interviews with the customers themselves, that needs to feed your content as well. And here, that research with sales objections. Just for example, in one of my previous roles, I was in online bootcamp, online education company, and online bootcamps are expensive. It's $50,000 to enroll. Usually the objection is price or timing. It's usually price and timing in any B2B deal. So because this is such a prevalent objections, now I need to find ways through content to get leads and make sure that I win trust as well, like warm them up for sales. So in my case, I did this two ways. One is show them a picture. If they enroll, what kind of jobs do they expect and what are the salary outcomes? Okay, I pay $15K, but if I have diligence and go through the course, I may get 6-figure salary as an engineer at one of the high-tech company. One thing. Internally, as a sales enablement content would be, let's figure out what kind of funds, grants we can use on sales that we can offer to students. Because if their province or their maybe government can cover some of the price, then that's going to be an easier sell. Or even come up with scripts that you can send to your employer. Hey, I'm taking this course. This will help us build this project or product in-house.
Mm.
So can you subsidize my learning and so on? And even for our salespeople, because there was so much content on our website, they didn't know where to look. I made a library of content in Notion so they can use a search field if objection was, or I want to use this for graphic design. When you start typing in Notion, student success design, it spew out 4 or 5 case studies and
Mhm.
share the prospect right away. And this could be done in real time. So you always look to get the sale in. And if you don't have this, then you're basically just raising percentages for positive outcome yourself.
Right. And are there perhaps good practices that you would recommend in establishing and running a competitive intelligence program?
Yeah. And also I've got prepared little 2-minute quiz for your listeners. If they go to /predictable B2B, they can solve that quiz and you would surface what's missing or what
Mhm.
you can do right away to pilot that CI function. But my recommendations are go slow. This is not a sprint. It's a marathon. Pick 1 or 2 competitors first. Make sure to get this conversation, really learn about your product, your objections, your competitor, and build imperfect battle card. Make sure to measure it. Bring your Get a team of 3 sales reps and sales that are the most energetic, most experimental, and think this is fun, and get those initial results. Is you will get results because before you didn't use any
Mm.
competitive deals, and now you are. You're either going to learn how to make your assets and collaterals better, or you're just going to get the revenue straight away. And I'll iterate it, do it again. In once in half a year, you will get amazing, amazing return on investment revenue. And now you can ask for your supervisor, hey, can we get some more budget on? Here are my ideas. Let's do this for the next 2 top competitors and maybe even hire outside consultants to do win-loss analysis for you. This is a really important thing as well, because if you do win-loss analysis in-house, you might get unbiased opinions.
Mm.
You ask a salesperson, what's missing? Oh, no, it's fine. It's great. I'm actually good. I don't need anything. But if it's somebody else, they might get data that's desperate. And yeah, that's the way to just grow it.
I think that sounds like sound advice. Are there perhaps a couple of aspects around this idea of competitive intelligence and sales enablement that you find doesn't get much airtime? In other words, doesn't get talked about very much. If so, what would they be?
I feel because it's such a buzzwordy thing, intelligence, so it's new, but it's all quite jargon. And you hear a lot about this is the strategic function, but the biggest benefit is the short-term results. Be tactical. Be scrappy. Just figure out what's one thing that I can use against the competitor, or how we can get on the offensive. So think how fast you can help your sales team right away to do those deals. So instead of big giant leaps and strategic research systems, think about how you can just start winning more deals by just collecting this, make something imperfect, and then grow it.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're suggesting that we don't spend hours and hours doing competitive research. It's something that could pretty much be done based off current knowledge and a little bit of online exploration.
Yes and no. Just I think when you do implement it, you will get results. So if you are systematic, just start creating systems because this does take a long while. If your company has a budget for it, then they are competitive intelligence softwares and platforms out there that can reduce the time to collect that data. But you'll have to spend time to do interviews with your sales team. You'll have to spend time to listen to the sales calls, maybe attend a sales call. And then based on your product knowledge, objections, primary sources, and secondary sources, you can craft one nice little formatted battle card and put it into action. Still going to take time, but we all know if we don't change anything, then next quarter we're going to have very similar grumpy conversation on our review meetings. Why are we not progressing? Well, because we haven't changed anything. But now we have this, and now we're winning the deals. Let's add more budget. Let's add more resources. So believe it. Get better next.
And what are a couple of competitive intelligence tools that you would recommend to someone who's looking to add this function to their kind
Yeah. So let's say here there's not a lot of budget. If you want to solve this in house, you can use Google Alerts, you can use social listening tools that are out there. There's one thing called Activate Bot that looks for your mentions on Reddit as well, which is usually quite cheeky source of competitive intel as well. You can scraping tools on review sites like Terra, G2, Trustpilot. You can build formatted stacks and materials in Notion, Google Slides, or so on. The quickest way is to hire us, of course.
of.
But if you have a budget, the really great software tools are Crayon or Clue. So they gather that intel for you and you serve as a curator as well. So you just turn that insight into assets that your teams can use. And they're all fun things for sharing those assets as well. I think HighSpot is a good way to share battle cards and objection handling materials or seismic. But I really want to stress that just get started as soon as possible. You will have to do this research about the tools. You can just, yes, you can do this manually at first, but you just need to solve this issue, problem. Because everywhere is this problem. Last year, I think there were 9,500 SaaS tech tools. This year, it was, I think, over 11,000. The marketing pie is smaller. Competition is stiffer. Blue oceans don't exist anymore. You need to be prepared and don't react to be proactive to this and just establish a solution with your organization as fast as possible, especially if you're in the industry.
Terrific. Sounds like sound advice. To wrap things up, if you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
Just the last thing that I said, just get started right
Fair enough.
away, figure out who your competitor is. Usually, this is kind of funny thing is the main competitor might not be the company that is mentioned the most because your sales team might be quite adequate at closing sales when that competitor is mentioned. You have to look at the lost deals where that competitor was mentioned. So just start there.
Great nugget. And Dan, if people are curious, want to find out more or connect with you, where would you recommend they head to?
Yeah, best way would probably just connect on LinkedIn, like accept every contact. Also, download or solve that little quiz, growscale.com/predictable B2B. Solve that little quiz. It will tell you what you need to do, competitive intelligence aspect. And yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Great. We'll include links to that in the show notes. Dan, this has been terrific. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks so much, Vinay. This was fun.